say a very, very happy new year. I know 2016 had some rough patches, so I'm very excited to see all the good that will come out of 2017, starting fresh. And I thought I would share today with you 2 of my Christmas presents and a birthday present from quite some time ago. And we can start with this lovely traveling notebook. A coworker of mine got it for me. I'm planning on traveling quite a bit in the near future, so my coworkers wanted me to have really good things to journal in. And this is a beautiful, textured little journal, kind of pocket sized. And in the back, there's a little pocket. She gave me a little love note inside to say that she hopes I have safe journeys filled with adventure. And I thought the different shiny little pieces are so soft and slick. And the notebook is covered with stickers and stamps and postcards from all over Singapore, Paris, par avion via airmail, Canadian Pacific, Texas. That looks like Russian. I cannot read that. Penna. Okay. So it's a really fun, beautiful little journal. And then this is another travel journal. My boss, the owner of the business I work for, purchased this for me. We drew Secret Santas, and she pulled my name, and I was very lucky. This is Handmade by a local woman who comes to our business fairly often. So we were able to support a local business, which is always a good thing. And it's a pretty cool idea, which I think has been around for a little while, but I had not heard of. And you have a heavy-duty leather cover with some rubber bands inside. And what you can do is put lined notebook paper some cool little markers or a planner or many other things. Lined paper if you want a sketchbook. And where you can keep important notes. And my wonderful caring boss put these together for me. She knows I love music and wanted me to be able to journal and put in a full year's worth. And what you do is you repurchase empties of these and you are able to take it out, put in a blank one, and you're finished. And she gave me a new set of bands just in case these stretch out. And you can keep this same heavy-duty leather cover that you will wear down and give character. And then you don't have to carry tons of different journals and notebooks. You only have the one with small little sachets of paper that you can easily keep in a shoebox or wherever it is you store your journals. And she picked dark blue, which is my favorite. You can see that it's hand-dyed because leather takes dye differently depending on the texture. So there are a few little different colored spots, which I love. And this was also a Christmas gift, so we have a Christmas tree, jingle bells, those Christmas songs on this piece of the folder paper. So those are two things that I thought were really cool and I wanted to share with you. And then to the book that I found while unpacking that I got for my birthday a while ago. That brings me so much joy. I shared with you the Dragonology book. And this is a lot like that. It only focuses on fairies instead of dragons. There are tons of fun little discoveries to be made inside. And all sorts of knowledge about fairy folk. And on the front, there's a hologram. You know, some people love that sound, some people hate it. is Fairyopolis, a flower fairies journal. Let's open it up and see what's inside. The Waldrons, Croydon, Surrey. Dear sirs, I hope you will not mind my writing to you with a request. I am an artist and writer who has been fascinated by fairies since I was a child. My first book, Flower Fairies of the Spring, will be published later this year. I am sending society a journal I kept during the summer of 1920 when I felt particularly inspired to write and sketch copiously. I am trusting you, my fellow fairy lovers, to look after and preserve this book. Yours sincerely, Cicely Barker. Presented to Frederick Warren and Company, the British Fairy Folklore Society. Received March 2005. And here you see a picture of Cicely. And underneath it says Storrington Photographic Studios. As we turn the page, we see some of her journaling, April 3rd. How wonderful it is to be back at Barton's. It's a haven of tranquility here, and I am so looking forward to a few months of painting and quiet contemplation. She speaks of her friend Edith, who let her stay in her summer home. Since she's traveling, Edith will be happy to know that Cicely is taking care of her garden. It's a painting she has done. Barton's is surrounded by meadows filled with wildflowers. Then, on April 6th, she writes, a strange thing happened today. I was watering the flowers when I caught a glimpse of something on the path. On closer inspection, I could clearly see that it was a set of tiny, wet footprints. Each print was no longer than a quarter of an inch. I have some knowledge of animal footprints, and I am convinced that these prints were not from any ordinary creature. She talks about when they appeared, heading into daffodils. Now it's evening, and she's thinking over it, and reminded of her grandmother's wonderful fairy tales. And here we have a little leaflet about the daisy fairy. Humans try to search for me. I flit, I fly, I hide from thee. Lift my petals, only 3, to see if you may capture me. Oh, I think it's a butterfly. And another butterfly. And a bumblebee. Wonder where she is. She was in the very last one. There she is. And under this, we have a postcard. Dear Cicely, her grandmother. It says, "Grandmother sent me this postcard when I was little, after she had told me all about a pretty fairy who lived among the daisies." And that is probably the daisy fairy there. Precious. Something must have gotten stuck here. Okay, we are in May. The days have passed quickly. I have been sketching and writing nearly every day. However, by far the most important thing to report is the occurrence of an inexplainable incident. Yesterday, while taking my afternoon rest, I heard the sound of singing, and what a sound it was! Like the tinkling of tiny magical bells. The sound was enticing, and it appeared to be coming from the end of Edith's garden. I crept down to the garden's end, but as I neared the site, the singing abruptly stopped. There was no one and nothing to be seen, apart from a luxuriant patch of lilies of the valley, which were so pretty I couldn't resist sketching one of them. So here's her sketch. What or who could have sung this unearthly chorus? I began to sketch. A beautiful creature came into my head, the lily of the valley fairy, the tinkles of her tiny white bells in harmony, and calls the other fairies to sing. This morning I cycled to Storrington Library. I ventured into their folklore and myths section, and there were some very interesting books on the subject of the little folk. Here's her little card, and here's a field guide to fairies. What is a fairy? A fairy is a tiny being in human form that possesses magical powers. The English word fairy comes from the Old French fairy and the Latin fata, meaning fate. The classical green fates were believed to control the destiny of the human race. It talks about flower fairies, elves, pixies, goblins, brownies, dwarves, gnomes, and leprechauns. Here's an entry about the fairy places in Sussex. A map. Pointing out where you can find fairy folk. It's a very detailed map. Her books have given her an intriguing insight into the world of fairies. For centuries, people have encountered fairies, pixies, and elves in locations all over the country. And there's one whole chapter on Sussex. May 23rd, I've come across a very interesting advertisement in the Sussex Herald today. Perhaps I should attend a lecture. If nothing else, the sea air at Brighton would be exhilarating. I'll cycle down to the station and investigate train times. And the British Fairy Folklore Society is having a lecture on the subject of little people, their habits, and behavior. We have a sketch of a violet fairy and a train ticket. In June, had a wonderful day in Brighton. The lecture was fascinating. And here she goes into more detail about pieces of a fairy. Its pointed ears, its wings, gossamer dress. Some fairies go bare feet, others prefer petals or leaf shoes. According to Lady H.L., there are a significant number of people who are blessed with the gift. I myself have never seen a fairy, but given the experiences I have had, I wonder if I may be similarly gifted. How to see a fairy. How to disperse glamour through the use of a four-leaf clover. I certainly cannot count on finding such a rare specimen. There are only two means by which humans may disperse the glamour. June 24. It was Midsummer's Eve yesterday, so I stayed up all night. I saw nothing, and most disappointed. I did, however, find something rather intriguing caught on a twig. We'll write more later. Some fairies wear collars made of petals. June 25th. Perplexing little find. Very fragile treasure. An extremely delicate, almost transparent piece of what looks like a fairy wing. Could disintegrate if handled roughly. It's a lovely shiny little piece. She stumbled across a tiny scrap caught up on a sharp thorn. At first thinking it was part of a butterfly's wing, but on closer inspection, I don't believe it is. On June 30th, the museum was full of information. The Horminum Museum. It was nice to see Mother and Dorothy and the children in Dorothy's kindergarten. Dot asked me if I wouldn't mind having one of her charges, Dulcie Evans, to stay with me for a week or so. Her mother is ill and her father has long since passed away. Of course, I'm glad to help out. And here she has different butterflies that could not have provided the specimen found. Would a fairy fly in the exact same way as a butterfly, I wonder? Butterflies are impressive flyers, flapping thin wings slowly but strongly. The museum had many butterfly specimens, and I studied the wings at length. I am now convinced that my piece of wing does not come from a butterfly. It has an iridescent quality to it. Could it be a fragment from a flower fairy's wing? We have beautiful sketches of fairies here. Oh, beautiful. This page has a picture of Dulcie. And she wants to know what is in the corner of the picture. Is it a fairy? And here's a beautiful watercolor painting of a willow fairy. July 23rd. The last 2 weeks have been such a whirlwind of activity that my poor journal has been completely neglected. Dulcie and I have had the time of our lives, spending our days swimming, cycling, and hiking. Over the water I lean all day, where the sticklebacks and the minnows play. I dance when the breezes blow, and dip my toes in the stream below. Dulcie leaves on August the 2nd, and she asks, "Do you believe in fairies?" I responded with a tentative, "Well, some people do." She replied, "I do believe in fairies. I can feel them all around me. This is a magical place." And I do see there's a tiny little face right in the corner. It looks like a little fairy peeking out. August 3rd. I was awoken by a noise in the middle of the night. I stumbled into the garden, and the source of the disturbance, a whimpering sound, became more distant, which I recognized to be a baby's cry. It gradually dwindled to nothing. I spotted a flower head lying on the grass. It looked so much like a baby's bonnet. I came directly inside and wrote to Dorothy. Having written the letter, I realized that it all sounds rather odd, so I will not send it. I feel much calmer now, so I shall endeavor to return to sleep. And again, the letter right here. Talking to her sister. Writing in the middle of the night, having been awoken by a strange noise. She is not at all frightened. She thinks that there are fairies. How I wish I could see you to discuss the above. I wonder if you might find time to visit. I wait your reply eagerly, so she would love her sister to come. Help her find fairies. August 20th. The last few weeks have been a time of quiet reflection. I am feeling absolutely determined to find out for sure whether or not there are fairies living here. She's going to be a detective. She has a plan of action, equipment needed, and the best times for seeing fairies. The best times to see a fairy are at twilight, midnight, just before sunrise, and midday. Once a fairy has been spotted, be sure to keep your eyes fixed upon it. The fairy will only be seen for as long as one looks at it unwaveringly. And Lewis Carroll writes, "The first rule is that it must be a very hot day, that we may consider as settled, and you must be just a little sleepy, but not too sleepy to keep your eyes open, mind. While you ought to feel a little what one may call fairyish." August 22nd. I've been hiding in the rockery every evening from twilight to midnight. No luck so far. August 24. Now trying to catch them early. Nothing yet. August 29. Fairies, where are you? I admit defeat. The little minxes have evaded me. Exhausted. September 1st. I've had my fill of fairies and have resolved to forget about them for the time being. 2 days later. Took a walk in the woods today. I was passing under a beech tree when a shower of nuts rained down upon my head. As I looked upwards, I heard a giggle. I imagined a fairy living high in the tree. Many trees are significant to fairies, in particular oak, ash, and thorn. here is a dictionary of fairy trees, showing nut trees, oak, rowan, willow, apple, ash, beech, blackthorn, elder, hawthorn, holly, and lilac. Towards the end of my walk, I came upon a mysterious-looking circle of long dark grass, dotted here and there with mushrooms. I believe it to be a fairy ring. What an exciting find. As soon as I arrived home, I endeavored to find out all I could about fairy rings. And she found out that fairies hate being investigated by humans, which is probably why she did not see any. Here is the secret of the fairy ring. In some parts of West Country, folk tales describe nighttime fairies who ride young horses in circles around fairy rings. Rings have a link with fairyland. In some parts of the country, stepping into a fairy ring will bring good luck, in others misfortune. It is a place where fairies meet to dance. Fairy rings are found in woods and fields, and appear as rings of dark grass or circles of mushrooms, or a combination of the two. September 4th. There is to be a village fete on Saturday, festival. I've decided to take along some blackberry jam as a contribution. Took my basket and went down to the hedgerow this afternoon. Berries are growing in abundance. She cut her hand on the thorns. She bandaged her hand and thought she would leave some jam for the fairies. The 5th of September. I had the strangest dream last night. A group of fairies were hovering above my head, discussing my wound. A wonderful heady scent of flowers wafted around me. I suddenly realized my hand no longer hurt. It is completely healed. I am stunned. I must find my watercolors immediately in order to capture my magical vision. Mother's blackberry jam. Dear fairies, please accept this small gift. Kindest regards, Cicely. And this is her painting. So her gift of jam, I have brought the fairies to her. And here we have her blackberry jam recipe. September 6th. I suddenly realized I had quite forgotten about my gift of jam. I rushed into the garden and it was gone. I'm beginning to think that through the healing of my hand, the fairies were showing their gratitude to me for their small gift. Some more paintings. I have discovered in a drawer a book of fairy tales belonging to Edith. Remarkable that she too has an interest in the fairies. According to these tales, fairies have been known to use their powers to help humans. They also have the ability to bestow good health. We have our tales of grateful and helpful fairies. The helpful elves. The begging fairy. The fairy baby. And the broken bed. Fairies are said to be responsible for putting silver coins in the boots of hard-working servants while they sleep. September 8th. What an enjoyable day I had at the fete. I think I have become quite famous in the village as the lady staying up at gardens. I revealed that I was an artist by profession and had a long conversation with the vicar of the local fauna. Everyone was most complimentary about my jam. Here's the invitation, and it says paid in full, and there's a fairy on the back. The beautiful painting underneath. She talks about her time at the festival and came back home. As she meandered along, my mind full of the day's events, I remembered reading that fairies enjoy their own kinds of gatherings. I looked it up in my books when I got in, and they have their own fair. Acorn cups, fairy cakes. I made a sketch. I think we have some fairy dust. I felt rather unwell yesterday. Seemed to have caught a cold. I took my cup of chamomile tea and retired to bed for most of the day. She had just dozed off when she felt a peculiar sensation at the end of my big toe. It began as a slight tickle, then became a rather hard pinch. My toe was red and throbbing as if it had been stung by a bee, but no bee was in the vicinity. A gleeful chuckle emerged from behind the curtain. I pulled it back, and there was a sudden flash of color, and then nothing. I caught a glimpse of something from the corner of my eye. Some kind of sparkling dust was scattered over the window. I carefully gathered up what I could. Looks like fairy dust. I believe this is fairy dust. I cannot say how relieved I am to have some physical evidence at last. September 14th. My poetry book contains a verse that is rather enlightening as to the reason for my assault. Yesterday I had left various chores undone, which is very unlike me, but I was feeling most poorly. Apparently, the fairies are famous for pinching the toes of untidy humans. I do believe I have been scolded by the fairies. I also suspect the fairy dust was scattered as a housekeeping test. Let us hope I have passed. She that pinches country wenches, if they rub not clean their benches, and with sharper nails remembers when they rake not up their embers. And this is her chore list undone. And she will be sure to finish all of her chores. September 15th. Spent the morning compiling a list of fairy preferences. I really am becoming quite an expert. How to find favor. It's a very long list. How to fall out of favor. Intrude into their affairs. Oh, and it looks like a fairy walked the business building. And here's a postcard from Edith to Cicely. And that she will be home at Christmas. And she's convinced she's living among fairies after the dust incident. And is very happy and full of gratitude. And her portfolio is bulging with sketches, paintings, and poems. My sole purpose now is to continue the work I have begun this summer and to fulfill my life's ambition by having a book of my fairies published. September 17th. The time has come to leave Storrington. Term begins soon, and I promise to help towards happy with her new intake at kindergarten. She has mixed feelings about leaving. She misses her family and friends, but doesn't want to leave her fairy friends. So she wrote them little letters that say, "Goodbye, dear fairies. Thank you for allowing me to know of your presence and for bringing me joy and inspiration. These gifts will remain with me forever. I wish I were not leaving you, but I promise to return to Barton's one day. I hope you will still be here to greet me. I will never forget you as long as I live. Your loving friend, Cicely." She wrote many and gave them to all of the places she thinks the fairies are. As she looked out the front door for the last time, the most enchanting smell of flowers rose around me. I stood still for a moment. "Goodbye, dear fairies," I cried aloud. "Don't you dare forget me. And with that, I left. On the very last page, we have, "Do not look directly at the sun with these lenses." A little 3D picture thing that I think you need 2 eyes to be able to see. It has a little photo of a fairy gathering, which is pretty darn cool. Oh, and it's from the fairies. It says, "All you have to do is look, and you shall find us." That's really sweet. And we have little fairies scattered all over the back page. As dusk fell, there was a magical feel to the evening. One could almost see groups of fairies flitting about the shadowy fields. I hope you have enjoyed this time of tapping and whispering magic as we learned about the fairies in Fairyopolis. And I hope as 2017 starts,